that is an opinion and approach to it. I mean, you may not like it, but that doesn't mean you should be driving someone out of a job or preventing someone from competing fairly for a job just because you don't like their viewpoints on an issue. And I do think, given these are public universities, I do think that there's something to be said here for the constitutional argument. If you followed this channel long enough, you know that I have a very strong dislike of DEI statements, and I view them as significant numbers of people do as political litmus tests, or more precisely, ideological litmus tests. And that's been shown by some of the rubrics that have been used, whereby if you express a particular viewpoint, you get more points, or if you express a different viewpoint, you get less points in the DEI statements. But the other angle, of course, is the question of whether or not a publicly funded university can mandate these things from applicants, whether it be for faculty positions or as students. And that is where we get to this story. And again, why do I focus on these things? Because the thing is, we train the next generation of scientists at universities, whether they be social sciences or life sciences or physical sciences or natural sciences. You train those disciplines at universities, and so it is important to recognize things going on at the universities when training the next generation end up influencing the long-term directions of the professions of science. And so that's why I kind of think this is important to talk about, in that, well, are we going to be mandating the next generation of scientists all have particular views about something, which is pretty antithetical on the diversity front to begin with, I would think, if you're after truly viewpoint diversity, as I am. But it's also doesn't help on the science side if you're restricting perspectives based on something that, for most disciplines, is not relevant to the research questions of the discipline. So, University of California sued for mandating DEI statements from applicants. This comes from the College Fix. A policy that requires scholars seeking a job at UC Santa Cruz to provide a diversity, equity, and inclusion statement as part of the application process is unconstitutional, argues a recently filed lawsuit against the University of California system and UCSC leaders. The Pacific Legal Foundation filed the lawsuit on behalf of J.D. Haltigan, a former University of Toronto psychology professor who argues the university's DEI statement runs afoul of the First Amendment because it requires Haltigan to, quote, express ideas with which he disagrees in order to be eligible for employment. The lawsuit states UC Santa Cruz applicants, quote, must express agreement with specific sociopolitical ideas, including the view that treating individuals differently based on their race or sex is desirable. Now, this goes back to some of the rubrics, and I may take a second to actually look up the UC Berkeley rubric for DEI statements, which seems to be the most commonly used when you have any of these rubrics in here, because it is, shall we say, might be an accurate statement, let's put it that way, based upon those rubrics. In fact, matter, hold on a sec. I just wanted to find this real quick to make the point in that, yep, there are rubrics for these things. Of course, now they're starting to add the belonging thing, which doesn't really, which, you belong if you're of the same opinions, is really what that amounts to, I think. Discuss diversity in vague terms, such as diversity is important for science, may state having little experience with the issues because of lack of exposure. Clear knowledge of or experience with, interest in dimensions of, comfort discussing, is aware of demographic data, discusses underrepresentedness, understands the challenges. Where is it? Yes, here it is. Explicitly states the intention to ignore the varying backgrounds of their students and treat everyone the same. So in other words, if you're going to be treating students as the individuals that they are, that's not good, according to the UC Berkeley version, which I suspect, since this is part of the University of California system, UC Santa Cruz probably was using the same thing. Haltigan's support of colorblind inclusivity, viewpoint diversity, and merit-based evaluation stands against UC Santa Cruz's publicly stated progressive stances and policies, it alleges. Quote, because the DEI statement requires Dr. Haltigan to affirm particular beliefs that are inherently separate from the qualifications for the position or purpose of the university as a whole, it imposes a condition on employment that would be unconstitutional if done outright. This case, quote, could not only put an end to the use of DEI statements to screen applicants in the UC system, it could also, quote, create good precedent for future challenges to these sorts of policies, Jack Brown, Haltigan's attorney, told the College Fix via email. So there is certainly a lot of interesting things going on with this, and I do agree that in the sense of it being a public university, I find it very skeptical that the First Amendment would say that you as a public university have the right to dictate what your employees' beliefs are as a condition of employment at a public university, of which the University of California is. And so that's why I wonder if it would hold here. So according to the complaint, wait a minute, hold on. Litigation comes as a concern over mandatory DEI statements. Earlier this month, for example, Florida approved a new law that bans DEI statements in hiring. Tennessee approved a similar measure in April. Reached for comment on the topic, San Diego State University English professor Peter Hernan, a public critic of the use of DEI statements in higher education hiring, told the College Fix that, quote, DEI statements contribute to an intellectual monoculture in which only certain ideas, certain beliefs are acceptable. So getting rid of them is a great idea. At UC Santa Cruz, Contributions to Diversity Statement Guidelines document spells out on its website what the school is, quote, committed to... Try that again. Spells out on its website that the school is committed to serving a student body and hiring faculty and staff who reflect the diversity of the state of California, responding to the needs of a diverse society, as well as maintaining principles of equity and inclusion. Let me see here. Oh, yeah, here it is. Examples of what might be included. Research-related contributions. Oh, boy. Didn't come right out and say it, but anyway. Let's see. The psychology department at UC Santa Cruz includes dozens of DEI resources on its website instructing on how to apply anti-racism through research, teaching, and service. Very specific version of that, and I'm going to take a wager it's probably the Ala Ibram Kendi version, which, again, not everybody agrees with. According to the complaint, the University of California system established an advancing faculty diversity program which supports projects to increase racial and gender balance on UC campuses. The diversity statements found on the UC website are specifically defined to ensure that, quote, successful applicants adhere to a particular ideology and worldview, the lawsuit argues. Argued? There we go, if I could read today. Additionally, UC Santa Cruz adopted initial screening recruitment forms to ensure candidates abide by the diversity criteria the lawsuit contends. A Pacific Legal Foundation news release states that the DEI requirement, quote, has nothing to do with an applicant's qualifications and everything to do with their beliefs outside the job opportunity. Yet candidates who don't comply won't even get through the initial screening process. Scholars disagree on whether mandatory DEI statements pass muster with the Constitution. Supporters argue they are akin to teaching and research statements, but critics contend they enforce viewpoint discrimination, violate academic freedom, and create a political litmus test. So, Al- Supporters argue that DEI statements are akin to teaching and research statements. So, teaching and research statements are basically giving your vision, what you have done in teaching, what you will be doing in teaching, what's your approach in teaching, likewise for research. Um, I don't agree with that because with your teaching and research statements, you are not necessarily being asked to profess something of a particular viewpoint. You're being assessed for your skills in something still, most likely. So, no, I don't agree that they are akin to teaching and research statements in the slightest. So, let's see. As the lawsuit winds its way through the courts, Haltigan posted a general DEI statement on his Substack. Quote, I believe that the use of diversity, equity, inclusion statements in evaluating candidates for positions in higher education and academia are anathema to the ideals and principles of rigorous scholarship and the sound practice of science and teaching, all of which public universities were created to uphold. DEI statements have become a political litmus test for political orientation and activism, and that has created an untenable situation in higher academia where diversity of thought, the bedrock of liberal education, is neither promoted nor tolerated. So, this would be the lawsuit paperwork itself, in that Haltigan himself is suing the president of the University of California, the chancellor of UC Santa Cruz, the chair of the Department of Psychology, and the dean of the UC Santa Cruz Division of Social Sciences. So, of course, I'm not going to read through all of this because legal paperwork being what it is quite long. But the introduction is worth a quick read through. Section 1, the University of California, University or UC, has adopted a modern-day loyalty oath for professors who seek to join the faculty. Today's loyalty oath does not demand a pledge that professors are not members of the Communist Party, but professed agreement with diversity, equity, inclusion, DEI, policies, and ideology. The DEI statements demanded by the university are a thinly veiled attempt to ensure dogmatic conformity throughout the university system. Section 2, this requirement is imposed on every applicant to a faculty position in the university by means of a DEI statement requirement, which applicants must clear in order to even get a foot in the door. The university administration ensures conformity and compliance by promulgating detailed rubrics and guidelines that tell applicants exactly what to say and what not to say in their statements. Dr. John D. Haltigan challenges this functional loyalty oath as a violation of his rights under the First Amendment. He has a PhD in developmental psychology and seeks to apply to a position at UC Santa Cruz, but the stringent ideological requirements of the DEI statement make his application futile. Dr. Haltigan is challenging the University of California's DEI statement requirement because what was true for the anti-communist loyalty oaths of the Cold War era is still true today. The First Amendment does not tolerate laws that cast a pall of orthodoxy over the classroom. Kashan versus Board of Regents of the State University of New York, the University of the State of New York, rather. Academic freedom and freedom of expression demand that mandatory DEI statements meet the same fate as loyalty oaths of previous generations. This action arises under the First and 14th Amendments to the United States Constitution and 42 U.S.C. 1983. This court has jurisdiction over this federal claim under 28 U.S.C. 1331, federal question, and 1343A3, redress for the deprivation of civil rights. Declaratory relief is authorized by the Declaratory Judgment Act, 28 U.S.C. 22201. Venue is proper in this court under 28 U.S.C. 1391b2 because a substantial part of the events or omissions giving rise to the claim occurred and continue to occur in this district. Factual background. Here we go. The University of California has long considered diversity to be an important value in faculty hiring. Accordingly, in 2005, the University of California published a new section of its academic personnel manual encouraging, quote, diversity and equal opportunity. This section was designed to ensure that faculty which put effort into promoting equal opportunity and diversity receive some credit, but not to displace or substitute for scholarly rigor, objectivity, and originality. Under the 2005 version of the APM, applicants were asked for DEI statements, but they were rarely decisive. DEI statements were weighed alongside more traditional measures of aptitude, including academic success, publications, research plans, and teaching ability. Nor did the university provide prescriptive DEI guidelines and rubrics. The prevailing understanding of academic freedom prohibited the administration from dictating to faculty search committees about the beliefs of prospective academics. Gradually, however, the University of California began to come under pressure to use DEI statements more aggressively to pursue ideological conformity and a vision of diversity focused on racial, ethnic, and gender balancing. In 2015, the APM provision was revised to add language that emphasized the importance of DEI achievement as compared to other traditional academic criteria. In 2016, the California Budget Act allocated $2 million to promote racial and gender diversity, requiring a report from the university on fund usage and the racial, ethnic, and gender composition of the university. As a result, UC established the Advancing Faculty Diversity Program, which supports projects to increase racial and gender balance on UC campuses. In November 2017, the UC Office of the President issued a detailed report on its use of state funds, UCOP. The UCOP explained that the UC system was particularly focused on increasing diversity along racial and ethnic lines. The UCOP report highlighted a number of tools that particular departments or campuses could use to achieve the goal of enhanced racial and ethnic balance, including DEI statements. As explained in the UCOP report, AFD had allocated the state's funds to pilot programs that aim to advance faculty racial and ethnic balancing within the constraints of Prop 209, which Prop 209 is California's own civil rights laws. Among these programs was $600,000 for a UC Riverside program in the College of Engineering, which involved a unique approach to diversity statements. The UCOP highlighted the UC Riverside as particularly successful because it resulted in a tenfold increase in underrepresented minority finalists and a doubling of female representation. Let's see. In the following years, state funding. Okay, hold on. Here we go. The AFD-funded program at UC Santa Cruz focused on several elements. Most importantly, it emphasized that DEI statements should be a, quote, important part of the selection process, which must be considered in the first round of review. The program also encouraged search committees to engage in more in-depth discussions about the value of these statements. However, some search committees at UC Santa Cruz disregarded the emphasis on screening based on DEI statements, fearing they might lose top candidates. This led the university and the administration of the Santa Cruz campus to refocus search committees on the importance of using DEI statements aggressively. Collectively, these initiatives and pressures have utterly transformed the DEI statement's purpose and use in the University of California system. Importantly, this transformation involved a widespread adoption of the UC Riverside experiment to perform initial screening of candidates based only on diversity statements, the initial screening requirement. The other major change has been widespread adoption of detailed rubrics and guidelines to ensure uniformity. For example, around the same time that the California state legislature was giving money to the university to adjust racial and gender balance in its faculty, the University Academic Personnel and Programs Office, the APP, issued more detailed guidelines for evaluating DEI statements. Oh boy. There's a lot of interesting stuff in here. That's part of the reason I just stopped reading it, because that's all just like background. Okay, they were very much after doing this kind of stuff, and I understand that. Let's see. Following these developments, UC Santa Cruz now provides prospective applicants with detailed guidelines on what to say and what not to say on their DEI statements. APO defines diversity, equity, and inclusion in a specific manner that ensures successful applicants adhere to a particular ideology and worldview. APO goes on to explain. APO is what? Oh, Office of Academic Personnel. Okay. Ideas and beliefs that applicants are supposed to convey are embedded throughout APO's expectations, but particularly captured under the awareness heading. Experience and future plans are evaluated based on an applicant's past or planned contributions to diversity, equity, inclusion in teaching, research, and professional work, and service and professional activities. The activities and contributions applicants are asked to discuss are thinly veiled proxies for particular beliefs that the administration favors. The main diversity page also links to a starting rubric to further drive home to applicants exactly what they must say to pass through the DEI filter. To receive a high score under the terms set by the rubric, an applicant must express agreement with specific sociopolitical ideas, including the view that treating individuals differently based upon their race or sex is desirable. The rubric evaluates statements based on 3 criteria mentioned above: awareness, experience, and future plans, with a scoring range of 1 to 5, where 1 to 2 represents a low score. Let's see. In the Common Myths document, among other things, the university makes clear its commitment to race-centric hiring and its focus on silencing dissent on these issues. The document sends a clear message to applicants. Those who reject DEI orthodoxy will demonstrate low understanding or awareness of DEI and will not be considered for a position at UC Santa Cruz. Finally, UC Santa Cruz's psychology. Yeah, we know about that. The page embraces, without reservation, numerous controversial and political ideological perspectives, including the ideas of controversial author Ibram Kendi, linking to and endorsing multiple speeches and works. The documents on this page are not presented as academic research or as the individual perspectives of particular professors, but as the official view of the UC Santa Cruz's psychology department. Individually and collectively, the guidelines, rubrics, and reference materials require applicants to repeatedly attest to particular beliefs to produce a passable DEI statement. The mandatory beliefs have nothing to do with the university's mission, the qualifications for any given tenure-track position, or professional standards for academics. They are about propagating the ephemeral political ideology of the administration. The combined results of the DEI statement requirement and the initial screening requirement has created a situation where applicants who fail to demonstrate conformity with the beliefs and ideology represented on the APO website know that their application is futile. This process has the intent and the effect of driving contrary ideas and viewpoints out of the marketplace of academic hiring. And that is the concern. Definitely is the concern for a lot of these kinds of things. So, yeah. And the final thing they're saying here is with respect to Haltigan himself. According to the hiring announcement, the psychology department requires a DEI statement in order to apply, and it urges candidates to review the scoring rubric explained above. It also makes clear that an initial screening of candidates will be performed using only the DEI statement and a research statement. The DEI statement required for this position makes Dr. Haltigan's application futile. His stated views on colorblind inclusivity, viewpoint diversity, and merit-based evaluation alone, especially in the context of the initial screening requirement, make it impossible for him to truthfully compete for the position. If Dr. Haltigan were to apply for this position, he would be compelled to alter his behavior and either remain silent about the many important social issues addressed in the DEI statement requirement or recant his views to conform to the dictates of the university administration. So, after this is just demanding for relief with respect to this. And what are they asking for? Declaration that the DEI statement requirement employed by UC Santa Cruz Psychology Department violates the First Amendment to the United States Constitution. A preliminary injunction forbidding UC Santa Cruz and the Board of Regents officials from enforcing or attempting to enforce the DEI statement requirement against Dr. Haltigan. A permanent injunction forbidding UC Santa Cruz and the Board of Regents officials from enforcing or attempting to enforce the DEI requirement against Dr. Haltigan. An award of attorney's fees, costs, and expenses in this action pursuant to 42 U.S.C. 1988. Such other relief as the court may deem proper. So this was filed last week on behalf of Dr. Haltigan. And I gotta say, I'm curious to see how it unfolds because I am of the mind that I don't think it's legal to demand someone hold a particular viewpoint, a la the rubrics such as this. I didn't find the one specific to UC Santa Cruz, but again, this is still the UC system, where you are saying. Where you're saying this kind of thing, or that is an opinion and approach to it. I mean, you may not like it, but that doesn't mean you should be driving someone out of a job or preventing someone from competing fairly for a job just because you don't like their viewpoints on an issue. And I do think, given these are public universities, I do think that there's something to be said here for the constitutional argument. The other odd question would be what do you do with the private universities? Technically, probably not bound by that. But I don't know. So that's a fair question. The other one is I'm waiting and hoping that there is a lawsuit with respect to grant funding, because there are grant funding applications that are requiring these kinds of things now, and they're also requiring you to have specific plans related to this kind of stuff. And we've talked about that somewhat on this channel, and I don't think that's kosher either, to be honest. So let me know what you think. Hit the like button on the way at the door, comment on the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, all that lovely good jazz. Until next time, I'm Adrian. May you stay curious, everybody.